It's still a lot about gut instinct. We're like an extension of your brand. We've got to be aligned. We've got to have synergy. You've got to be, and I think this is true to whatever you do, is you've really got to feel that the people you're working with are on the same page as you. Because if their expectations are not realistic to what your skill set is, then it's probably not going to work.
Welcome to Process the Podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Thomas, motion director, social strategist, and founder of production company Cinema Tom, now founder of gummy brand Roame Wellness. This episode is powered by Roame. Take one of them, removes brain fog, allows you to focus. Take two of them, you're good for a workout. I have created them for you guys so that we can all get the most out of our days and live a really fulfilled life. Process is your home for creativity. I speak with some of Australia and the world's most creative minds all about their unique creative process. This podcast was recorded on Aboriginal land, always was, always will be Aboriginal land, as a baby podcast. We are still just doing this on our own, me and my team. So if you love it, please use your voice and leave us a review, share it on socials, send it to a friend, or just subscribe to the channel. We need all the love that we can get. Let's dive in. My first question for you.
Yes.
How do you feel after your gummy?
Wow. That is
do you feel different?
I do. I feel like I feel light.
The brain fog? Is it gone?
Brain fog. I feel really clear, clarity.
Yes.
No, I do. I feel like I've got lots of energy and I'm really excited.
Okay, amazing. Oh my God, that's the best feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, fab. So we met when we were doing, Vickham Woods did an event for, not an event, a little campaign, if you will, for International Women's Day.
Yes.
Women we work with, and you're one of them, and at the time I was one of them. And then I was in the campaign, but I was also behind the camera directing you guys. And you were just so lovely to work with. It was so nice.
Well, I think I was saying before, like being in front of camera is always often, you get so nervous, but you were just so cool and you made me feel so at ease. And I was like, I loved how I looked in that video. So then when I said, can I come on the podcast? I was like, well, yeah, she's easy to work with. She'll make me look good.
I hope so. Thanks. And again, great feedback.
Yeah.
So you have the Lofft Agency and you have Roame.
Yes.
Talk to me about each of those, what they are.
So they're whilst they're entities that sort of run under the same roof, they're very separate entities in themselves. So the Lofft Fashion Agency is an extremely well-established business.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of fun fact that a lot of people may not know is that it was founded by Margie Woods, who is also the creative director and founder of Victorian Woods. So it's actually a very old business. So the Lofft Agency started and has created within it many in-house brands, which I think I was trying to explain to you. But it predominantly started as a service business and servicing sales for established and lots of emerging brands. So over the years, we've worked from local labels like Beckenbridge, putting them on the map, Dylan Kane, even international brands like, the Rose Sisters first label, Elizabeth and James. Like there's so many.
Oh my God, did you do Elizabeth and James?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many. I asked my daughter, do you know this brand? And she didn't, but she does know who the Rowe girls are. But that was a really cool brand at the time.
I still have some of their pieces. I loved their brand.
So I think the Rolodex of brands that the Lofft has launched in various ways over the years is pretty large.
So how did you become involved in it?
So I had been living overseas in Hawaii for 3 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What were you doing in Hawaii?
It was kind of like a later life crisis. I guess
How old were you?
Well,
what do you mean later life?
Well, okay. People traditionally in my generation finished school, then went traveling, then went to uni. I kind of took the opposite route. I was always a really hard worker. So I went to uni, I studied, I did 2 degrees. I then started working in a business and then very quickly opened my own business, which I then sold very quickly. And this was all before I was 25 when this happened. So then I was like, well,
later life. Okay.
I need to go and live overseas. I haven't done that. I haven't had that experience. So I was on my way and I went to I was going to end up in LA and I wanted to do something different. I thought I want to be in PR. Anyway, first stop was Hawaii and then I never left and I stayed there for 3 years and worked at some really interesting jobs in luxury hotels.
My mum has a really similar story. She has this affinity. She'd kill me for telling the nitty-gritty details of her romances in Hawaii. But she is so obsessed with it.
Hawaii is a very special place. It's there's a lot of sort of spiritual elements that I think people aren't aware of. They just think of, the traditional Waikiki and the settings, but it's got a very Indigenous community as well, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
And, it's a happy place. Everyone there's on vacation.
Were you like on Blue Crush? Mahalo.
I was. And I remember, they were filming that probably. What year was that? We're going to have to Google that. They used to make a lot of movies there, Pirates of the Caribbean, all that one.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd always have like Johnny Depp in town. There was, I think, what's the one George Clooney was in? Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Very exciting times. And actually my job involved working with a lot of those celebrities. So it was exciting.
That is so cool. Okay.
Yeah,
and then
so
you came
we've really
home.
gone off topic.
So then you came home and...
So I came home and I was really like, I don't know what I want to do. And then Margie and I, to backtrack, I actually worked with her with my first job out of uni. So we worked for a very, at the time, brand that ended up selling and being very successful called Metallicus. So at the time, Margie was the marketing and sales, I think was probably her title. She was a couple of years older than me, and I came in, I'd finished uni, and I came in as a creative director and was completely underqualified, but was like trying to wing it. And Margie was amazing. So I would come up with these crazy design ideas, and she would then put them into a more commercial element. And we worked together in that business for a couple of years, and then we went our different ways. She did certain things, and then I came back. And at the time, she had the Lofft and Vic and Woods start at the same time, and Vic and Woods just blown up and become so big. And she was like, I need you to do this for me. I need you to run it. And just kind of said, here you go.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't really make her really nothing I do is I just go with it, gut instinct.
So at the time with the relationship with Margie, were you like, I don't know how to sell? Like, I don't know what that is. Or did you kind of get it just because of everything?
I'm a bit of an old school hustler.
Yeah.
I like selling. Selling's in my blood. I think my dad was in real estate.
The daughters of property moguls are so funny.
Yeah. So I grew up thinking everything was for sale.
Yeah.
So no, selling comes naturally to me, but also I really believe in product. I'm really passionate about product, and I've always been in fashion. So I think that that was always really easy for me. And relationships and sales and all sort of business is always about relationships. So I think they're my two sort of strong areas, and having actually understanding the creativity side of fashion and being able to build brands after studying design and everything, I think made me be able to I could look at it from both sides. So I can look at the commercial side and the creative side, and I think that really helped.
Yeah, which I'm so excited to get into. So, and now you have Roame. When did Roame start?
So Roame, into the market, it just had its 2-year birthday.
Right. Oh, so fresh.
2.5 years maybe it is now. But obviously one thing which will be really cool to talk about and explain to people is that to get to that point, there's a year before that.
Yeah.
In fashion. So fashion generally, as a rule, works at least 12 months ahead.
Yeah.
So that's something I think a lot of people who get into it don't understand. And, I'll lean into the critical path and the boring parts of fashion. But, you really do work so far in advance, which is one of the very complex parts of the industry. Fashion is always changing. And I literally just had this conversation the other day with my team, is that we're about to launch more product, but I feel like there's certain little elements we're missing. So we're also going to work to be doing fast tracking products. So I think you need to have a bit of a balance of both. So I think with the traditional fashion model, for instance, you technically should be designing your autumn winter range for next year now.
Yeah.
But so if you're working that far ahead, and like you say, with TikTok and Instagram, there's trends that come and you've got to be able to be reactive to them. So I always encourage brands, especially if you work direct with customer. This is really only if you work with direct with customer, because the wholesale money's already gone. Always just have a little bit of buffer or budget so you can produce a few items that are really responsive to what the market is looking for.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but it's a challenge because product development in fashion takes a long time. I think I was listening to one of your podcasts, and I think furniture's even worse, the development time. But to get a garment made properly, you need that at minimum 6 months. You need to test it. You need to develop it. You need to, there's so much that has to, before you even begin to think about the marketing side of it. So it's a lot more complicated than people realize.
So you obviously have this unbelievable knack for understanding brand and commercialities and what sells in this country.
I don't know. I'd like to think I have a little idea, but I love the fact that I'm always learning, and I love it when I'm surprised. And I think the first big surprise was when we had COVID, because that really blew my mind when we were selling things we thought we could never sell.
Like what?
Oh my God. I was actually thinking about it just before I came here because I knew you were going to ask me about like the start of Roame, which did start during that COVID lockdown. And I actually was trying to remember, but I worked out we were locked down for 260 days. So no wonder we got Roame done and created a lot of time to think about it. But I'll never forget, like, suddenly everybody wanted to wear puffer jackets in COVID. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And so we were like really reactive because you had to be reactive. Like we were selling dresses and all these beautiful things and then suddenly nobody wanted a dress. So puffers were really, and I just had this vision and we were adapting how we could sell because we couldn't have clients in the showroom.
Yeah.
We couldn't do anything. And
I remember we did your videos.
Yeah, we did. We made videos for people, but also like they were all at home in my house. And I remember like the actual space. That's why we have such big showrooms. I had like 200 like samples in my house and the puffer jackets alone were so huge. So you just sort of all these crazy things that you'd never thought would be like so successful. And I cannot tell you how many puffers we sold in COVID because everyone, all they would do in Melbourne particularly was go for walks and it was cold.
It was freezing.
Yeah. So
and it was also like, how cute's your puffer jacket?
Yeah.
Like there was nothing else to feel cute about.
And we had the best brand at the right timing, which was a brand called Toast at the time, and they made them in thousands of colours. And they were amazing and they were so cool. And the girls that created that were so smart and clever. And it just popped
Wow.
off. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it is a little bit of timing as well, you know, especially in the day we live in, like, you know, so you can be like going back to that critical path. You can be on your critical path, but you have to be able to be a bit malleable.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you look for in brands?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think for me and through my agency experience, it's still a lot about gut instinct. And I think what I always say when we're sort of, you know, starting off with a brand is that we're like an extension of your brand. So we've got to be aligned. We've got to have synergy. So I think you've got to be, and I think this is true to whatever you do, is you've really got to feel that the people you're working with are on the same page as you, because if their expectations are not realistic to what your skill set is, then it's probably not going to work. So I think making sure that the people that we're working with have a really clear understanding of what we can do for the brand and how we execute it. And they have to kind of also understand that we have a lot of back history to know what we're doing. So they have to be able to take feedback.
Yeah.
So if I meet a brand and I can just kind of get this gut instinct that it's going to be really hard to get through to them, then I think even if their product's amazing, you know, I think that's, you know, you have to be open to learn. So I think that is really important. I think also, obviously, in a very saturated market, it's got to have that, you know, unique selling point. And it always comes back to that, you know, Marketing 101. What are you doing that's different? What can I not get this somewhere else? You know, it's sort of different because there's different types of brands. We work with brands that are just purely creative, amazing artisan brands, like a brand like called Clear, where it's just, she's so talented. She's, you know, this is just her vision. But then if a brand is trying to come in to fill a spot, there's got to be a spot for it in the market. So you can't just do something that's already out there, because buyers know straight away. They know their product so well. So they will compare you straight away. I can get this somewhere else. So you've got to really understand your vision.
Wow.
And know exactly. Yeah, it's a lot.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you sign a brand, how do you navigate their expectations, and also how do you approach, like, are there spreadsheets and it's just like algorithms that like spit stuff out with data? Like, give me the lay of the land.
Two things. So with the Lofft, we'll either the brand could either be established, so we have some historical data that we can work on. So they might have already had some sales history that we can go through and make projections based on that. Obviously, we sort of know the limits within the market and the reach that they may have, and this is on a national level, because what sells in Sydney to Melbourne to Queensland is also really different to New Zealand. We work with New Zealand as well. But then on the flip side, it can be an extremely emerging brand where before we even take them to market, there's probably about a 6-month minimum journey where we get them ready for the market. So that can be looking at what they've already got in line for them, but also having to make some changes for their brand. A really good example, which is maybe going off topic, but I always think about this when I think about the history of the Lofft brands, is that many of them, the younger ones who came to us at the start, came with different names.
Really?
Yes, because often a brand is named after someone that has an emotional connection to the designer or the founder. Often it's their kids or their husband or something really unique. So, but that name necessarily isn't always super commercial. And you know that the buyer is really funny about the name of the brand and the brand story. So sometimes we have to sort of take a step back before we take a step forward with the brand. So yeah, there's lots involved in getting that brand ready for market. So in terms of projections for a brand like that, we would base it on, knowing which segments of the market we're going to go after and what availability or OTB there is in that. And that's another one that...
what does OTB mean?
Oh, yes, open to buy, a very key word if you're in fashion.
Mm-hmm. So does that mean is David Jones in the market for curve, swim, or
they will always have an element of their budget set aside if a really cool new emerging brand comes along.
Okay.
But that is a very hard little bit of that budget to get.
Okay.
So
it's so competitive because
it's
there are so many
competitive,
brands.
Okay. And they're limited on floor space as well. And they don't want to confuse their customer. They can't have every single brand. So that is one of the hard conversations you have to have with an emerging brand, is that it may take a lot of bites of the cherry. So whilst the Lofft is amazing and can get your brand in front of the best retailers in the country, e.g. David Jones, The Iconic, or whoever your goals may be, they just physically, they set these budgets out 24 months in advance. So, you can't take money where it doesn't exist initially. So, and also they like to see how it performs a bit in the market still as well. So as an emerging brand, that can be quite challenging because you have your minimums you have to reach. So a lot of it is about minimum orders, which you probably know a lot about now. You're in your vitamin business. It's a little bit overwhelming that, you can't just go out and write, and if they get 30 T-shirts, you can't go and make 30 T-shirts these days, sadly. You need a minimum of 50 or 100, or it might be 200 depending on which supplier you work to. So yeah, emerging brands, you need to help them prepare for these sort of, projections as well. So that's also in the preparation to get them to market with their range planning, because if it's too big, we know that there's going to be lots of cancelled styles and things. So those projections will come in a lot of pre-work as well.
When do you find out from a brand we'll call it a retailer, knowing that there are many, but they're all kind of the same ones in the household names that we're mentioning, because I don't want to put any numbers or words in your mouth.
Absolutely.
If we were to think of a retailer in general, how many dresses would they take if it was an emerging brand in Australia for a season and it's pretty new and there's a great dress?
Yes, I think that is one of the misconceptions that these big box retailers, whether they're based in Australia or the US, if you get on them, you're getting 200 units. It's not the case. It depends a little bit where you sit in their department, because within a big store, they might have a contemporary section, they might have a designer section. So if you're in the designer section, which is generally the more higher priced items, they might only buy 15, 20 of that style. So, that's hard to navigate. Wow. Whereas if you're in the more contemporary or the youth spaces, which are generally the products that sit in sort of the lower sub sort of, 400, 300, in my world anyway, there's bigger volume. So you might get a 50, unit. But until your brand is got proven sell-through, so that's another thing we talk about constantly, the department stores is always going to try at the start. So you're not going to get, unless it's a unicorn, which does happen, you're probably not going to kick off straight away with one retailer ordering that many. It's quite amazing. Even Revolve, I work with big ones, everything, Yeah.
Do they need to know the brand's PR plan?
Absolutely. I think particularly more and more now. So there's lots of questions that the buyers will ask us that are the same question every time when we present them with a new brand. What is the plan, the marketing plan? How do they plan to grow? The biggest thing we keep talking about is brand awareness. And I think that if you haven't got a plan to communicate your story, your message, or whatever your brand vision is to the direct customer, then it's very challenging for the buyer to onboard you. So you do have to kind of have a plan. You'll have to have budget set aside for that as well. So that's really, really, really important. And you have to be I think even more so now, because there is so many brands and there's so much messaging around Instagram and TikTok, you have to be really clear in what your story is and who your customer is.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing we really try and get brands to have, is a really clear explanation that we can communicate to the buyer so that they know, well, we have that customer for that. Yeah. So I think you have to be really prepared with all that stuff way more than ever before. It's a very tough market right now. And anyone who doesn't have a really clear vision, it's tricky.
So when you have the vision, is it like in a PDF, like this is what's allocated to digital marketing and this is our influencer spend, these are the people we're going after? Like, is it that detailed?
I like to call it kind of like, I think when you start a brand, it's good you need your business plan, which is kind of a totally different document, but I like to call it a brand book. I don't know what other industries call it. And that will have like a pretty honed in definition, and we will share this with the buyers as well. It will have anything about obviously the story of the brand, and it needs to be quite punchy though. Like nobody has time to read long winded stories about like your inspiration. You know, you have to nail that in, and then you'll also include in things like who is your girl, and you might even reference people, even if you haven't necessarily had them wear your clothes, but that's your girl. You might give her a name. You know, we have all these crazy names behind the scenes when we're doing option plans of these types of girls and categories we call. Or I say girls, it doesn't depend. I work only in women's. I've never worked in men's.
Yeah.
So I'm sure men's industry does the same. But yeah, you have to have a really clear vision of how you're going to market that product for you. When you get into a bigger retailer, you also have to be aware that you will have to contribute to that marketing financially. Yeah, within their own departments.
Yes.
So there's all these little things that you're not going to be, this is where we get into the margins game.
Yeah.
And how your numbers have to be correct before you start a brand. So we work a lot with the brands early on in their pricing architecture, because each time there's chips and chips coming out of it. When you're in the bigger the retailer, the bigger the margin they're going to eat your margin.
If you had an emerging brand, by the way, I learned all about that when I wrote the social strategy for Chemist Warehouse.
Oh, that's cool.
They're like, the way they get brands to spend once they're in that ecosystem is one of the smartest things I've ever seen in my short career.
It's actually amazing.
Whoa, that is genius.
So you know who does it the best? Harrods in London.
Really?
I have a really old girlfriend who is so talented, and she's worked at Harrods forever. And I had a coffee with her when I was in London last, and you literally pay to be in Harrods. I mean, it's such a beautiful store, and like to be in the front windows. I'm not even going to share. She did tell me how much it costs, but like,
oh wow,
yeah.
That's insane. So it's not like a lovely curation from someone that thinks that it's great. It's like how much you got.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Think about, you walk in, there's a Prada cafe, the Gucci's in the window, like Chanel's got it's amazing. So they're actually one of the most successful who really take that marketing element, and the brand pays to be a part of their brand.
Wow. Do Australian retailers do that?
They do. Yeah, absolutely they do.
I know that Mecca does.
Yeah, it's like paid activations a lot of the time as well. But then that's not to say like I don't want this to sound unfun or like it's really exciting too. Like these retailers also include you in their fashion shows and in their magazines and everything. But there is that other element where you have to help them to find your customer.
Yeah, for sure. Which I think is almost fair game.
Yeah, it's just the way of the world. It's changed so much from when I started. Like, obviously, when I started, Instagram didn't exist. When I started, there was no internet. It was really fun. I remember, I always look back on when I started. My first ever own business was actually I had a shop, and it was just before Net-a-Porter started. And I used to bring in all these international brands, and I could charge what I liked for them because no one could jump online, no one could reach them and compare them. Now, I mean, you go into a change room and you see people on their phones, like looking at who's got the the best price for it. But it's wild.
How does it work if you've got like a similar brand or two brands that you represent, and both of them are going for this? You know how Australian fashion recently has kind of become very same.
Yes.
And a lot of people are talking about it online as well, just like what is Australian style right now, because all of this looks identical.
Yeah.
How did you overcome that?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And one thing that actually Margie, who originally set up the Lofft, always instilled is she never wanted to compete against herself in the same space. So, for instance, when we have a handbag brand, we had one handbag brand and we just did it really well.
Okay, right.
So if another handbag came, unless it was offering something different, we wouldn't take it on because there was no sense in us trying to fight for the same dollar, and, ultimately one brand would fail and it wouldn't work. So we would then, that's where that curation came in, go with the one that we really believed in. So obviously with apparel, that's a bit different. But we would always look at a brand's, how we could differentiate them, because we don't want to confuse the buyer. We want the buyer to come in and say, this is the best curation of what we think is in the market right now. So if we had like a great tailoring range, for example, like a Vic & Woods, we wouldn't bring in another one. We might bring in one that might offer at a different price point, but doing it with a different twist. But we would never have ones, that competed directly with each other.
Yeah, I feel it's similar in like acting and modeling agencies. Like, why would you have two star players that you would be pegging against each other neck and neck? It's like, that's not comfortable for anyone, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think so. And listen, you can be the best salesman, but I think you do have to believe in the product. I like to really believe in the product that I'm selling. I like to be very authentic. So, if I'm looking at the start of the season and looking for new ranges, I will often, only pick the one that I feel that is going to really resonate with our market, especially in the space I'm in.
When you think of brands, and you mentioned like there sometimes is a unicorn, Vic & Woods is so the longevity behind that, I guess, and that there would just be so many learnings from that to even talk about Vic & Woods strategies, I feel like would be silly, because it's like, well, how long do you have? But are there brands that come to mind that you've worked on that Toast is one that you mentioned was the right timing?
Yes.
But I feel like that almost is like, well, no one can really apply that ever again.
No.
Is there something that you saw, and maybe even Roame could be one that was like, oh, we did that really, really well, like in terms of the strategies that you used or that the brand employed to get the most results?
I think there's so many brands I could mention over the years that we've had such great success with. I think a brand, and it probably, Vic & Woods is a great example, but another brand that I think is a good example that we've worked with for a long time before I deep dive into Roame is probably a brand that comes to mind as a New Zealand brand called Marl. And it's probably not the most necessary, like the well-known, like on everyone's lips, because they're probably a little more of a quieter brand. But they've always, ever since the day I met them, they've completely stuck to their original plan. And it was a good plan to begin with. And they don't deviate. And I think when brands kind of try and be too many things to do too many different people, then it's sort of like you can be successful for a short term, but long term it doesn't really last.
Yeah.
So I think Marl always had such a clear vision on their products, and even when we would suggest things that potentially we thought could do, they would only take it on if it really felt under the essence of the brand. So I like to look at those kind of sometimes quieter brands, because just because you're not the loudest doesn't mean you're not successful.
Yeah.
And they had such strong, they were so early in the sustainability part of fashion.
Wow.
And I think for me, one of the first brands that really educated me on, now we have a few now in our portfolio that are incredible, like Koto and things, these New Zealand brands that do incredible things with sustainability, which is really amazing. But I think, Marl was a brand, and they just consistently perform because they know who they are. The people behind the brand were always so passionate about the story. And so I think, brands like that, they're always successful because they really are clear from the start.
Yeah, amazing. How would you categorize their range if nobody's ever seen them or heard of them?
I think the creator Juliet always summed it up. Like, when you look at it, it can be quite simple, but when you put on, it's the feeling. The quality of the materials, they're so soft on the skin. They work with only natural fibers. So that one's a bit harder to communicate from a marketing level. Most people who wear Marl buy one thing and then continuously buy it because it's so good. So it's kind of working in a reverse way to what a lot of our other brands work, like Roame and stuff, where we're really loud and, we're really chatty. It's sort of like it goes on, building slower. So sometimes patience wins in the end as well.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Before you were mentioning that sometimes brands either get too big or they go in-house, or you did work and you sort of use past tense. What are reasons that a brand could get too big and stops working with you?
I think it's sort of like a happy and a sad. It's a bittersweet moment.
Yeah.
Because for me, if a brand leaves the Lofft and because they start to take their sales in house.
Is that because they're so big they can do that?
That's because they're so big.
Okay,
and that's actually should be a celebratory.
Yeah.
Because essentially it means that we have done a good enough job that they have now got a great enough revenue in sales that they can actually have a person in-house full-time dedicated to sales. So it's always sad. Ultimately, if a brand has got big enough that they're taking it in-house, then I've done my job right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Backstory of Roame. How did it actually come about?
So Roame, it's
I love the name, by the way. The first time I ever saw it, I was like, very clever.
well, the name, I'm really passionate about the name now. And I have to say, I didn't come up with it. It's this amazing girl who I'm going to shout out because she works at Vic & Woods and she's been with them forever, called Taylor, and she does all the naming of their styles as well.
What a fun job.
Yeah, and she's just ultra talented. And we had been throwing around names for a while and she suggested this name. I was like, that is exactly it. And then we went on the journey and, when in Roame, all these things.
Yeah.
We've trademarked everything. Like, we're really passionate about the name. But Roame essentially started in COVID, like a lot of brands did. And it was a bit of a passion project with Margie, the co-founder. And what happened was when we lost the ability to travel, I realized, like, just for me personally, how detrimental that was. And I kind of reflected on the happiest times of my life, and they were with traveling, whether it was with my family or with my, when I was a little girl, or to my new family now as an adult. And I had just would like think of things that would make me happy, and any dollar or cent I'd ever spent on a trip, whether it was for work or it was always just like, I never regretted it. So it sort of stemmed from that idea of destinations and vacation. And I think then I did see there was a lot of space still for resort wear. And I want to get back to and talk about resort wear. I just saw that there was this emotion behind travel and holidaying. And so I guess Roame stemmed from wanting to be able to kind of have people have an emotion when they put on the clothes. So, and Margie and I would sit there and we would like, well, what would be your ultimate holiday wardrobe? And we came up with it. And then we were like, well, it's got to be more than that, because sadly we're not on holidays all the time. So we wanted to make sure that whilst it's resort wear, it could be worn in the city and in everyday life. So we have a certain few rules about the garments. They have to be able to be worn with flats and sort of things like that. So it sort of created and started with that. So that passion and love for travel. And I guess her and I had done a lot of traveling together. And when we couldn't travel, we felt starved. And then I guess the essence of the brand then really moved into the print side of things and this color side of things, which is my skills and passion and where I really lie in the business. And yeah, being able to tell these stories, and it sort of became a fun thing. And we thought, we'll just start another range. And we were like, should we, shouldn't we? Like, do we want to do this? We've both got great other businesses going on. Do we want to take on another one? And we just thought, let's just do it. And then it kind of blew up. And then we're like, okay, there's no backtracking now.
Yeah.
But we did have a big plan. I mean, Margie's super commercial. We knew exactly where we wanted the brand to sit and where we want it to be. And fortunately, it did. We were so lucky. And this is, I think, something, we weren't just fresh out of uni starting a brand. We've 20 years plus. We've seen the good side, the bad side, the ugly side. So, we were really lucky. We knew the tough work that was going to be involved, and we knew where we wanted to be, and we just went hard early, and we were so lucky that, we had such great success from the get-go. So I think it's probably not like a good brand to compare, because I think sometimes we've got a lot of backstory to it. We were a bit more established before, even though it's a new brand. We had a really good understanding of the
It's
market.
on the shoulders of like 20 years of legacy setup.
Yeah. So, working in sales, I kind of knew like what buyers were looking for. I knew what their expectations were, which was probably the thing. So I knew the reality of the infrastructure and the costs that you need to actually start in a major department store. Like it's all really good for us to go out and sell your brand and get you hundreds of units. But if you can't financially fund that order, or you don't have a team that can help you get that order into production, it's really tough. And that's where a lot of brands come undone really early, because it's just that quick growth really quickly. So we kind of had that set up already. So we knew that we could take where it was going to go. And it was so exciting to get such a great reaction at the start.
Now, fast forwarding to 2 years on, who is a part of your team, and what did you originally set up to now?
Yeah, so when we first started Roame, it was literally 3 people, and it was in a little corner of a part of an office that wasn't being used like many brands. And today we're still pretty small. I think Roame, we have about 7, but not everyone is full-time. We also work with a lot of like contractors and outside people. And I think that's something that brands should know, that you don't have to necessarily have an employee for everything. There's plenty of great freelancers just like yourself, you can lean on when you need certain, you can scale up and down then, which is really good. So it's still a small team, but I think the biggest part of our team is that anyone that comes into the Roame team has to be able to do multiple things. We are not big enough. Nobody has an assistant. There's no design assistant. There's no production assistant. So, you have to be able to do all parts of your job and roll up your sleeves.
Yeah,
and do
absolutely.
That. So we've got a really great team of girls that are some of them are very experienced and some of them are still learning on the job, which I think is good because you need a bit of both.
Yes. You need that hunger.
You do.
Sure.
So the team essentially is a design manager, a production manager, merchandise, we have social media, and we have wholesale manager. So it's quite small.
Wow. And what is your role?
So my role is creative director. I basically love product. So I'm very involved in the product from the very infancy stage. So with Roame, it's a bit different to other fashion brands. It all starts with the prints. So I do all the creative briefing, which is, for anything from the sort of the inspiration for that particular collection and then into the actual each print. So every print has a story. So I spend hours and hours looking through archives, imagery to create these sort of visions of how I see the print. And then
are they sourced or designed?
Every single print is designed by us.
Wow.
So that is really our unique selling point because it's quite hard. It's hard because it's costly and it's timely. And, we have so many prints in each collection. So you think about it and they all have a story. So it's hours of hours creative work. I'm talking about
what's your fascination with creating the prints and stuff?
I just love the way that when someone wears it, either somebody starts asking them about it.
Yeah.
We've got so many funny prints. 2 of our most successful prints, one is called Après Surf, one is called, I think it's called Racket Club. And they are like full landscape prints. They're literally like canvases.
Yeah.
And they have, if you look really closely, you'll see, secret element. Like I've even got my dogs in some of the prints. Everything has a story. So getting back to that storytelling, that destination, usually they're around either a place I've been to or would like to travel to.
Yeah.
And so then I research that place and take on a theme and then put all those elements into it. And then through, great, amazing, they're called textile designs. They'll help put that to life. And then with my design team, we then work the products.
Okay. Right.
Yes. So we just want people to feel really unique. And it's almost like they're a talking point when they're wearing it. And also to take them into this emotional state of being somewhere kind of, how can you be sad if you're wearing like head to toe waves and,
yeah,
you can't be, you've got to be happy. So I guess that circles back to that sort of the essence of Roame for me is it's resort wear, but it's about taking you on a emotion. So triggering you to feel like you're on holidays when you're wearing it. 'Cause, we all want to be on holidays, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. How did you guys decide on like the price point and those kind of where you sat in the market? Was that again sort of just you being essentially an expert?
I think I was sort of lucky because when I first created the brand, I did, through my amazing network, I did show some of my buyer friends who are friends. And again, it's back to being and having good relationships. Yeah. And I asked them, where do you see it fitting in? Because I know where I see it fitting in, but I'm old enough and wise enough now to know that I'm not precious. And if they see it sitting somewhere in a different space in the market, then if a few people have told me that, then I'm going to take it on board. So I asked a few of them and I really felt like there was a real opportunity in the space that was not necessarily, I hate to use the word accessible because what is accessible anymore? Like everybody's budget is different, but I wanted it to always maybe be aspirational, but never be something that you couldn't maybe save up for one day. So currently, I don't think we do. I think very randomly, we won't ever have anything over the $500 price point. So we're very strict on our pricing architecture. We have dresses that begin in sort of the early 200s, but our sweet spot for dresses is around the 300s, and I always wanted to stick to that because I wanted people to be able to buy it and wear it and, you know, enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know, right? I think, you know, it's hard. It's really hard making these garments in those price points with especially with the dollar and everything these days. But we just wanted it to sit in that market, and so then it could attract a variety of people. So we can get a lot of quite young people wearing our clothes, as well as people who just, you know, don't want to spend that much on clothes. You know, you don't need to. You know, I think. You know, luxury is a privilege and it's great to have those pieces, but, you know, you want to have things that you can wear all the time.
Totally. Can you explain, so off the cuff, but actually really important, how the dollar at the moment, because when you are buying things offshore, you're usually paying in USD.
Yes.
How that actually affects an Australian business?
It's really,
because I'm trying
tough
to articulate it at the moment, but I'm not able to, because I'm just not that, I don't trust my own economical awareness.
Yeah, I know. Listen, it's probably one of the hardest things we're all navigating at the moment, with the dollar being very weak right now. This is a process that I've learnt, again, you know, being lucky through working in the infrastructure of other businesses, is setting up your margins with really big buffers to begin with, so that you can accommodate when this fluctuation happens. Now, I'm not saying we're perfect and we get it right. Sometimes, you know, we still all get done, but you have to be prepared when you're setting up your pricing architecture to take that into consideration, that because it's sort of starting backwards. When you initially price the product to when you sell it to when you go to market can be often 12 months. So you need to have that set up from the start. Fashion is scrambling at the moment. If you work with the US particularly, I don't know if you're across the tariff situation. Nobody expected that. And it's killing me.
Right.
Yeah, because it's an ever moving target. So Trump obviously has come in. He's introduced these tariffs, for instance. So we supply to the US, and when you supply internationally, a lot of the time it usually comes in what they call DDP. So the brand will pay for the landed cost of the product. So that means you're responsible for the duties and taxes. So no one foresaw that there was going to be an extra 20% on top of the taxes that already existed. So for instance, when a fashion garment lands, it's now about 40 to 45% tax.
So, but we're in Australia, and these are Australian brands, but they're coming mostly from China if they're manufactured.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter. It's anything coming in to the US.
Really?
Like that. Yeah, our product is all made in China.
Yeah.
But it affects everything. So the complexities of this tariff also people don't understand. So it comes down to the percentage of what you'll get charged will be of it, like made up of what is the garment made of. If it's made of cotton, polyester, like it's all these different things. There's different tax rates for that. So it's really complex.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I'm by no means an expert, and we're all learning on the go. And I'm so lucky, you know, I'm relying on my, you know, freight forwarders and DHL relationships to kind of get me through this. But it's affecting a lot of brands who sell in the US right now, because things like this is the unpredictable nature of fashion or of any industry. You know, things can get spun on its head really quickly. So I think that's something that even if you had done what I would have said to done and allow buffer, nobody allowed that much buffer.
Yeah, wow.
So then it goes back again, circling back again to that relationship thing. So being able to reach out to the store and explain to them, how can we share this together? Because we didn't expect it. If we have to cut this, you know, brands can go broke from these kind of situations.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you've got a good relationship with them already, you can communicate with them. And that would be the same whether you're in, you know, you're going to probably find it. I don't know anything about vitamins or gummies and supplements and when they land and what tariffs and taxes, but you might find like it'll even affect. So here's another really good example is that if someone from the US buys on your website here and the garment is sent over there, it will still be at this new tariff. So then that's a really
right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was considering doing US shipping and I'm like, nay.
Yeah. I think that I wouldn't say nay, because I tell you what, the most wonderful thing about the US is it's a big place.
Yeah.
And Roame has recently just really entered the US market in a big way. And it's so exciting seeing orders from like Texas and all these places that we're reaching that we would have never sort of imagined what that customer profiling looked like. So I think, and there is such a big market, and there's many places in the US, especially for our brand, that the temperature is perfect for Roame all year round.
Yeah, I can imagine a girl in Texas in the, what do they call it, in the back of the car.
Do you know what's so funny you say that? Because I was in a showroom and we were showing a range to this absolutely awesome, I call them a mini major. So they're like a boutique that has like 6 boutiques in Texas.
Yeah.
And the woman said to me, "Oh my God," I'm going to do a terrible American accent. "Oh my God, this will just be perfect for tailgating." And
yes, tailgating.
I was like, tailgating, and I was like on my phone kind of looking cool. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that'll be so good for tailgating. I can just see this with cowboy boots. And I was like, okay, I'm just sitting on my phone.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That made me so happy. That was one of those happy moments. I was like, when you sort of get surprised at how someone is going to style or wear your product. And I thought, you know what? So now when I am looking at some of the ranges, especially our mini dresses, I always have this vision of my mind of these beautiful Texan girls
wearing it with a flat. Is it going to be okay with the cowboy?
It's going to be okay with the cowboy boot. And I was like, that is so cool. So I would not discourage, working with the US because they are such a big player. I think it's just be prepared.
Do you have a 3PL over there?
We don't yet, but we will probably
So are you shipping from Australia?
We're shipping from Australia.
Okay.
But we will probably do that as we grow. Yeah. It's a little bit of a control thing for me. I like to check the product. I'm still a bit nosy and I'd like to see it here landed and make sure the pick and pack's right. And, that's how deep in I get. Like I go into the warehouse and check, make sure the unit's there and, things like that.
Good.
So, I think you have to, especially, I always say you can only make one first impression.
Yes.
So you don't want your boxes to land and the packaging's wrong or it's got the wrong order in it. It's also really costly if you have to return things.
Yeah.
So I think that's something we'll look towards and I think will be helpful. And it's just also good for the environment. You don't really want to be shipping goods here to ship goods there if you can ship it direct. So we're definitely taking on board all those things and we've got those things in place for when we grow a little bit bigger.
So how are you advertising to the US?
So that's also an interesting question. We are so excited and it probably jumping forward to one of the things you might ask me later, but we recently launched on a internet platform called Revolve, which which I think a lot of people buy from. And we were sort of just so excited because it's such an amazing platform. It just has the best curation of brands. It's very it's very trend driven, so they're really quick and they take on trends, and they're just a great business to work with. And they are actually owned by Amazon now, so they're
I did not know that.
Yeah, so
oh my God, their technology must be fucking wild.
Their website's unbelievable. So I don't know if you've been on
data
it lately.
You
the
must
data,
see.
It's amazing, and even but what I like about it is the consumer can see the data as well. So I don't know if you ever jump on their website. It'll say 6 people have just bought this in the last 10 minutes or whatever it is. And it'll say this item's on fire or whatever. Like, it's so cool. You really have to go and check it out.
What is it about consumers that we like knowing that someone else has got it?
Yeah, I know, right?
And then again, we also don't want to know that.
Is it true? Is that really? Because I'm just going to put on my web. But it is. It's all true. So it's all live. It's really amazing. So what we noticed is when we launched on them, not only it's only very early days, but we suddenly started getting direct custom orders on our website from the US.
Because they were like, what is this cute brand?
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't mean that we had to go and spend a lot on advertising in the US, and we want to, but we just don't have the budget right now. It was a nice way for us to start to meet US customers very organically. So they had seen the range on Revolve, and obviously like any, you might have in your collection 75 SKUs, but Revolve may only buy 5. So, it's a nice way that then the customer can come on your website and see your whole collection.
Totally.
Yeah. So
interesting.
It's really exciting.
So as the creative director, how do you personally split up all your time right now when you also have the Lofft Agency?
Well, I think that's a great question and why we're here on a Saturday afternoon.
I know.
And I have to say, big thank you to you because we were supposed to meet on Wednesday and I was just like running out of time and I thought, good for you.
I launched the gummies on Wednesday. I was like, thank fuck she cancelled. Like, yes.
Well, it's good that you're very adaptable. But yeah, this is the reality of having a business is that, you don't switch off and we're sitting here on a Saturday to do this. So how do I divide my time? I think it's such a juggle and I always feel like I'm not successfully doing it.
How do you try?
So how do I try is I think the best way I do it is I stick to my strengths. And so I know what I'm good at. So the things I'm good at, I try and spend more time on because I'm more productive. If I'm not good at something, I'll seek someone who's good to either work with me and help me do it or someone in my team. And in my team, some of these girls are so good at certain things that I'll delegate to them. So I guess it's a bit like the delegation part, which is hard. And so splitting my time, I think at the moment it's probably I don't want to give percentages, but I think I'm so passionate about all elements still. Like I still read all the sell-through reports from every Lofft brand. I still like to know what's happening in each category. I like to touch base with the designers there. But then, you just somehow make it work.
Do you time block or do you do anything like any hacks to?
Yes, I have set times where I meet with like my agency manager every week.
Yeah, okay.
So I always know what's going on. And if they need me, if there's a problem or it's a good problem or a bad problem, I am there for them. So I always make sure I'm regularly meeting not only with the agency manager, but also with, the sales agents as well. So I try and stay really, really connected all the time because I want to keep learning because that's always changing as well. So I always want to be across the detail as much as possible. The other thing, listen, I get so nervous when someone comes near my laptop because everyone comes near and like they look, oh, how come you've got so many tabs open? Why do you have 3 calendars? I have multiple emails. So like, I think it's probably dangerous, but a lot of it is how I set my day up from the beginning. So when I wake up, the first thing I do is I try and live in the day as well, because if I look at what I have to do for the whole week, I would probably start to go back to bed and think it's all too hard. So just making sure that day I know what I have to get done.
Yeah.
And I'm an old school. I have a pen and a paper. I write lists and I cross them off. And if I don't get to them at the end of the day, I then email myself the things that I have to get to tomorrow. So that's the first thing I look at.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So full steam ahead with Roame then. What milestones has it as a brand new business? You mentioned that it's launched into the US. How is it going?
So listen, it's a very exciting time when you're in this sort of new stage of a brand. I think some of the really fun milestones that have happened more recently in 2024 was a really big growth year for us. So many fun things happened. We launched our first store in New South Wales, which was really exciting.
Where is it?
It's in a really cool new spot. So not everyone might know it. Even Sydney-siders may not have visited there. But obviously we can't afford the rent of, being in Paddington and places like that yet. But we were really lucky to get a spot in a new development called Engine Yards. And it's actually perfect for Roame because it has a lot of international visitors. So essentially it's about 15 minutes from the airport, and anyone who's in fashion will know that Rosebery's kind of like a Richmond version.
Oh, yeah.
So most fashion businesses are in Rosebery. Yeah. So if you walk around, you've got, the head office of everyone, Zimmerman, Inku. I mean, every second place is a
the Sir girls are there.
So everyone's there. And this group they redeveloped what was an old engine yard, and it's a beautiful old historical building, and they gutted it and they've filled it with, I think in Rosebery, like for instance, we're opposite Zimmerman next to Vickham Woods, there's Basic just round the corner, there's Camilla and Mark. So it's like a kind of like a mini sort of open air mall. It has a mixture which is really cool, and people should go and shop there because it has a lot of clearance as well.
Yeah, it feels like a bit Cremorne.
It's very like Cremorne, but it's on a much bigger scale. So Roame decided to open a store there, which is really great because you can get some Roame pieces that are from the old Roame, and also you can see the new collection as well. So our store's a bit of a hybrid where we feature the clearances, but we also have all the new product as well.
Amazing.
So that was really exciting. And what was really exciting about opening the store was just learning what the customer was buying.
Yeah.
And meeting our customer and finding out. So it's really cool there because they they get a lot of international people. So, people from all around the world, which was exactly what the product was intended for.
Yeah.
So it's lovely. I love because we always take the data when people buy, and you see the garments going off to Korea the other day. And I was like, oh, how cool. I wonder where she's going to wear that. Or anywhere. So that was really exciting. And we kind of didn't roll out a retail concept. It was very much a temporary store, which is we're going to continue because it's been successful, but it feels quite organic in there. It's kind of decorated in a very cute way, not the typical shop way with fixtures and fittings. So it's got quite a lot of personality. So that was one of the really exciting things that happened last year. Most recently, we just did our first runway. We were in the Melbourne PayPal Fashion Festival, which was only a few weeks ago. Which I'm sure you went to show some things. No. Why not?
I used to work it. I used to have that contract.
Oh, okay.
And it's just,
sorry.
No, no, it's definitely not a matter of PTSD or whatever, but I just find those events are tiring, and you take a while to look really cute and stuff like that. And the conversations that you have, I'm much more of a one-on-one direct person now, and I don't necessarily have the capacity, especially this quarter that has just passed.
Yes.
I really wasn't social.
Yes.
I got invited to things and I declined them all.
It's very social.
I was so on the grind to get Remy out. So I just politely was like, no, not for me.
Yeah. Well, it's a pretty cool festival, especially for brands like us that are really young. And I don't know if many people know. I mean, Vic and Woods just did their runway show, and it was spectacular. And other brands within the Lofft have done great runway shows at the Sydney Fashion Festival. But runway shows run into the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So to have a runway show is, it's not something we could do at the moment. So it was really exciting because the festival invites you, and essentially there's not really much cost for the brand, and it's a great way to
they operate as a non-for-profit, right?
Correct. Yeah. So basically all it will cost you is buying some tickets for your friends. Yeah. And also if you want to put any, we did a little event before and a little activation. So we decided to take advantage of the opportunity and use it as a call out. But it's really cool because then you can have your own runway show. So they take care of the models, the production. Yeah. They help you get sponsorship for the footwear and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it was really fun for us, and we were a bit unprepared for it. I'm not going to lie, because I think if you're going to have a runway show, you need to think of the pieces that probably would pop on a runway show.
Do you choose or they choose?
It's a little combination. They do choose. And then what we learnt was that we felt like some of our pieces, whilst they're fantastic for holidays and everyday life, maybe weren't so sort of wow on the runway. So we fast-tracked a couple of designs and that were runway exclusives, which was really cool. And we did very small runs of them. I think they are on pre-order, about to launch, and there's a couple of dresses in there that I think are close to being sold out, which was really cool fun. So we only made 30 of each.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you look at those pieces, they're quite a bit more special.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably where I felt unprepared, is thinking about it being on a runway. But it was a really fun event and I think the biggest win for me in that event was that we grew our following. And so it meant that we'd reached people that maybe we wouldn't have reached if we weren't part of that festival. And I think getting back to what we were talking about with when you're building a brand awareness is the hardest part.
Yeah.
It's important. Obviously, you can spend through digital media to grow your brand, but I still think at the end of the day, it needs to be a bit organic. And if people can discover you at a festival or at a boutique or whatever it might be, and they organically then start following your brand, I think it's kind of got a little bit more longevity to it.
Yeah, absolutely. How does it, in your own design process, you having the niggling of data, because you're a creative director and you're doing prints, but then you're also so hyper aware of sell-through.
Yes.
How does that kind of work when you're piecing those things together to make sure that the brand has success?
It's a really good question. I think sometimes with data, it's sometimes so obvious and it's like staring you in the face and you're like, oh my God, it was right there all the time. So using data is so important. So for me, I think one thing I learned that you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel every time. You need to look at your data and what has sold. And you'll generally find, even though you keep injecting new styles, you'll be building this core range. So through data, you'll see.
Does that mean like a one style that's like the Harper dress and it's in another colorway or whatever?
A great example. So Roame, our first, what I would call piece that I saw this, I recognized the data. So I guess talking to your point that maybe if I hadn't had the experience and understood about reading data, I wouldn't have picked this piece out so early, because I saw that this particular style, we were selling really good units in. And so often, unless you know to look at the data and to read the data correctly, as a new brand, you might just not realize that you had something right in front of you. You didn't need to reinvent the wheel. So we have a particular dress called the Theodore dress in Roame that we have done pretty much since the start. We have a few that are like that. And we do either we just repeat them in different prints, or we actually just sort of tweak them, make them a little bit different. And every time we think we should pull it out again, as soon as we pull it out, people ask for it again. So, that's where you really need to know your data and use your data, because we have to keep that dress in, which is also a really cute story that's named after my Jack Russell, because he's called Theodore.
Oh,
and I was
that's
like,
so cute.
so always name your what you hope to be your best styles after someone or someone special, because it usually generally works out. But yeah, so I think with data, you don't want to be 100%. You don't want it to ruin the creative process at all, because I do see that sometimes if you just purely go on data, the brand can seem a bit boring after a while. You do always have to inject newness, and you have to experiment, and you have to keep your customer engaged. But ultimately, at the end of the day, in my case, especially with Roame, there's the same styles that continually sell. So being aware of that is really, really important. There's a big platform that we as agency and buyers and anyone who's in the industry has access to, and you can see what is selling. And, and the good thing I think people probably don't realize is that when you work with, even from small boutiques, they will share, data with you. Even boutiques, I'm not going to name names, whether they're in, suburbs very close to here, they will share with you what's selling. And so I guess it is a bit of a luxury to have that insight. And I think it's also like you want to still kind of work with that data, but do it in your own way, because there's no point just filling a gap in the data. You need to actually still understand the product and the end use.
Yes.
So I think that I did see that there was this real swing, and that no matter at what level, whether it's designer, contemporary, whatever, people do like buying dresses. So
yeah,
I think that was but that's hard in itself, because, that block in itself lends to so many categories. But for us, there was a certain category that we felt that was missing and that we would constantly see on sell-through.
I plugged in all of the, like, Acast is the platform for podcasting.
Yep.
And I exported all of our listenership and performance and episode stuff. And I was playing around with Claude AI the other day. Claude is like ChatGPT, but it's a little bit more like presentation data friendly to then present the metrics to you in a visual form.
Ooh, so that's a good tip. Yeah. Claude. I know, like, there's Gemini, there's so many different ones now. That's good. So look at that.
I was like, how can I better this podcast based on the data that you're seeing?
Yes.
And it told me to move my episodes from Sunday to Tuesday, and it would likely grow by 300 to 400% because the majority of the listeners are active on Tuesdays.
Isn't that so awesome?
And I was like, oh my God. But my gut says don't do it. And I'm like, what? And now I'm like in this weird juju headspace of being like, because I'm personally the most creative I can be on a Sunday. So I put it on a Sunday because I was like, I just want to drop it every Sunday, because I know, and even the audience, so many girls have said to me, I just love every Sunday rolls around and I take myself for a walk and I go listen. And I'm like, but
I think
300 to 400%.
Well, have you tried it?
No, not yet.
No, okay. Well, I think that's probably going with the gut instinct. And I guess also you have to be careful. Like, I always read those things like the best time to post, the day of the week or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if we all follow that, we're all going to be posting, we're all going to be competing. Yeah. So maybe that's, I guess, that coming into like, well, if you know what your audience wants.
Yeah, I might take it to them and be like, hey guys, what do you want?
I think so. But I think that you've also got to try new things.
Yes, of
and
course.
You've got to be open to taking a risk.
Yeah.
And at the worst thing, you can always put it back on.
Yeah, and be like, jokes, it's back on Sunday.
Yeah. Didn't work. But I think actually one thing I think that you've just you mentioned, which I was literally just having a conversation with Margie about the other day, was using AI.
Yeah.
So I think that was like, first of all, when AI came out, everyone's like, don't use it, like, da, da, da.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't use it, you're going to really fall behind.
Absolutely. You'll be cannibalized.
And
for sure.
I think the way I like to use it is for efficiencies. And I think the fact that you can do something a lot quicker by using AI is amazing. So whether it's, even writing an email, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But I think I'm really curious to know about the one you mentioned, like these presentations as a creative, they can take you months.
Yeah.
And they can be, unless you're in the zone, like it's quite hard to get started sometimes, even as well. So even if you're using it to sort of kick you start, to get onto a report you've been trying to do. But also it's really good for brands that are just starting out who cannot afford things. Like we had something we were trying to do on Shopify the other day, and we know that if we ring the web developer, it's going to be like another $300-$400 here.
Yeah.
And that. So like one of the girls just said, I'm going to try and solve it with using AI. And she did. And I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah, you can get code and all sorts of little things.
Yeah, things. So I think that's it's so exciting.
I'm using it at the moment. I'm going to do like a how I use AI episode soon because I really am using it a lot. But at my level, I can't afford a CFO. I have a virtual assistant, Molly, who's unbelievable and lives in Yarraville and just works remote. She does maybe 5 hours a week for me. She does our bookkeeping as such and runs all of the invoices and stuff through Xero. But I can't afford a CFO with somebody with that gaze to be looking at all of that data, to be like, you should be hiring this person, or, okay, you actually need that. Because in my accountant, if I asked them to do that, that would probably cost me about $2,000 end to end to get answers that are really tangible.
Yes.
So I've been taking data, exporting things, tools that I already have to pay for to keep the business afloat like that, and literally plugging them into Claude to be like, make suggestions for me for next quarter, and then also zoom out for the next 3 years. What have been the most profitable deals that I've done? And it just, the thought of doing that myself and actually looking through that data is so exhausting.
Yes.
But even down to personal brand, you can export your own data on Instagram and be like, what has gotten the most engagement from my accounts? And it will tell you the post that you did on Christmas with the photo of your family, or like whatever you shared then with the caption about this new reveal was the most exciting. Keep sharing your whatevers. And you can do that from any perspective, being a brand, a personal blog, like literally anything that you're trying to grow, plug it in and like it will tell you what the highest performing shit is.
Absolutely. But I think it also goes back to just being open to be tangible and try new things. Like try this different time zone. Because what we found even in our socials, and I am still learning, and I have a great girl. I have 2 great girls that really help with that, and we do, we seek outside help, but it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So, for instance, we were finding that when we posted ghost image, it was really tracking. And then next time, and we were like really surprised by that. Like, who would want to see it not on a person?
Yeah.
But people really liked it. So then we were like, let's go and spend all our money on ghost. And then we did it again. It wasn't the ghost image. So you also realize you have to like take it sometimes
with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Like you have to find what your customer is really tracking too. Sometimes it can just be a bit of an anomaly that week, maybe, or that day. So I think, and I think the one thing that you have to be careful with that AI is particularly in the creative side of things, because if you ask it to write something creatively for your brand, I feel like you can kind of hear it in the voice.
Yeah.
It's not 100%. So I think it's definitely, I like to use AI, and this is just my way to get me started.
Yeah, 100%.
To get
I do the
my
same.
brain ticking and everything. So I'll sometimes run it through multiple AI things, and then I'll take the best of it, and then I'll just sit down and think, is that really right? Like I'll check before I actually share it, because I think you don't want to lose the essence. And I think that a computer can only do so much, but maybe I'm wrong.
I asked it the other day to reword an email of how I was feeling. A contractor charged my card with something that they asked me if they could charge it. And then about 3 minutes later, I saw the notification come up with the charge.
Oh, gosh.
And I didn't realize at the time that they'd been offered a 7-day trial and that they were going to explain to me they'd just put the card details in for the 7-day trial and they were going to cancel it, but for the name name of speed, they just went this option, but I kind of my emotion beat them to the punch of their explanation. So I was like, I'm going to write this email. And then a part of me was like, just ask ChatGPT to change this up because
Soften it.
Yeah, you don't want to come across that aggressive. And because the speed that I had to move for the Roame launch, I was like fucking all guns blazing. I was moving fast and I didn't necessarily have time to be like, hey, whoever was in the room with me, is this really harsh? Like, or whatever I usually do to sense check myself. And it absolutely helped and changed and I was able to move on really quickly.
Yes.
And I was really happy with the result that it spat back out. But also there's a whole generation of people using ChatGPT for therapy.
Oh, I know. I think that's a really cool use of it as well.
Yeah.
I think one thing I've learned too, which is going to sound really old school, is that it's good to use ChatGPT because never do anything when you're a little bit fiery or a little bit angry, because
acting on emotion
on emotions, because especially in email it can get so misconstrued. I mean, we've all been there. We've all written that email and go, oh my God, I shouldn't have said it like that. So I think, but I'm also really big from, which I think is something that's really lost at the moment, is, and I just did it yesterday when someone asked me something on email and it kind of annoyed me and I thought, I'm just going to actually pick up the phone and I'm going to call them.
Yeah.
And within 1 second we'd sorted it out.
Yeah.
Because it was the way the email had written, it was confusing to me. So I was actually thinking this person wanted something that wasn't actually what they wanted.
Yeah.
So nothing beats just an old
old-fashioned phone call.
Old-fashioned phone call. But I think one thing to be careful of is, because you sign up for all these things when you have a new business, getting back to like Xero and your Shopify and these apps that you're adding on and all things, that's a really quick way to lose money as well.
I know.
So I know I've been definitely guilty of it. And so just always look through your charges every month because there's probably half of them you're not using. Yeah. But they're so tempting when you sign up, but do you really use that app?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. We've got one at the moment. It's outstanding. It's like $1,200 from a thing called Get Munch. I've got no fucking clue what that is. I'm trying to solve the problem right now of like, what is that? And it's on my to-do list every day. It's like Get Munch ? I think it's an editing software that someone downloaded for like an animation 7-day trial so we could just get this really specific effect, and then it fucked us. And
some of them are cheeky and charge annually, so then you really can't get out of it. But yes, you really have to watch those things, especially when you're starting out.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask you what mistakes you've made, but that's probably one of them.
That is one of them. I think. Listen, I think that I always say it's only a mistake if you do it twice.
True. Okay.
And so the girls at work often look at me with a confused face, and I kind of, you've just got to understand that there's going to be mistakes made, and it's how you manage that mistake. To me, is more important than the mistake.
Yeah.
So, transparency, being accountable means so much to me, especially because we're all so busy. Mistakes are going to happen. I think then, to me, it's not a mistake then. It's only a mistake if you do it again or if you just can't be accountable for it. So I think that's something that I learned I'm still learning. Like, nobody likes admitting when they're wrong. Yeah. But I think I'm really good at it now. And I think I see it not as a negative but a positive when I can identify where I could have done something better. So I think we've definitely made mistakes. I mean, fashion it's more engineering than people realize. So probably mistakes that I think of are potentially not necessarily like if a garment comes in wrong. We've definitely had that, and it's you kind of like circle and you think, is it the manufacturer? But it may be in the design, and there's tension points and things within a garment, and we've had garments come in and hundreds of units of them, and we've just done something incorrectly. Now, as a brand, you have to make the decision. Do I let it go out into the market because I'm so desperate because we've got hundreds of these units, or do you just say, I have to eat that and wear it? And we at Roame have done that with a star where it came in, it wasn't good enough. We weren't able to get a return through our manufacturer, so we had to eat it. And they're big expenses and big mistakes. So as long as we don't do it again, it's not a mistake. But just realize that there's going to be lots of mistakes, and it's how you deal with them. It's like somebody taught me once ages ago, and I always liked this, and I think as my team is growing, this is kind of what I really like about my team members and anyone out there who is wanting to be a good team member, is that when there is a problem or there is a mistake, rather than just like presenting it to say your direct report or whoever it is, like come with the mistake and maybe 3 or 4 ideas of how to solve it. To me, that's like so good. Yeah. Because as someone who's, running a SWAT team, if all the burdens fall on me, it becomes really, really stressful.
Yeah.
So if you can come and we can, and also like a problem shared is a problem halved. So like come with ideas.
Yeah.
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 So
I love that.
Yeah.
Is there anything that's really surprised you in the Roame journey where you're like, if I was you, I probably would have come up towards Roame with not an arrogance, but kind of like I know this market, I can sell this. Is there anything that really surprised you that was like, damn, I didn't know that? Or like, wow, this is the design, like you mentioned that, the tension.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that was like, oh, like.
I think things that surprised me a lot about Roame is like it's having the confidence as well, because when I look at the historical of our best-selling prints, they're the most loud, wild, out there, more crazy ones. And I think that's sort of always really surprised me. So whenever I would sort of get my business hat on and become a bit like, oh, that's not commercial or that's too crazy, it always shocked me. It always ended up being the bestseller, and I feel like at the start of each season in your mind, when you present a collection, you think they're going to love this one. And then the one that they love, honestly, it's still hard to pick some of these times.
Yeah. Wow.
So for me, but I kind of like that surprise too.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a good surprise because it means like keep doing what you're doing, keep being wild. Because I think people really appreciate, a bit of a risk take, a bit of a dare. And I think you'll be surprised how many people out there really want to, express themselves through what they're wearing. And so whilst, it's particularly being in Melbourne, everyone's in black a lot of the time.
Yes.
And we don't have any black at Roame.
Is that a rule?
Well, no, we have no rules either. Roame is very unruled. We probably need more rules. But no, I think I have this thing on a Monday. If you come into our office and it's a shared office, so there's like 70 girls in there, I feel like everyone's in black. It's like you've managed to just scrape yourself to get to the office on Monday, and there's no way you could wear anything. Your creativity. But by the end of the week, I love it that people are wearing like crazy shorts, crop tops, colors and all that. But I think that was the essence of the brand, getting back to that brand story. And even though I would like to do black because that black's going to sell, it's not the story for us.
Yeah.
So I think that
maybe like black with embroidery.
Yeah.
Or like
we do have, I shouldn't say that, we have a print that has a black base for the first time coming out in autumn, and it actually was our bestseller. So I'm excited to see how it performs, but it's got a lot of color in it as well. So yeah, I think those kind of things always surprise me, and it's good to be surprised.
What's the best part about resort as opposed to the others?
My mission when I started the brand was that we if we could sell it in every destination I wanted to travel for, it would be a tax deduction and a business trip.
Fuck yeah. That's what the Cirque girls did.
So, oh really?
They're like, we all of our friends are our models. So yeah, it works.
Well, sadly, I don't know if I have that. I mean, I think everyone's beautiful. Everyone can be a model. But for me, it was all about legitimizing and being able to go and explore and go on more destinations and holidays. So I think one of the big goals for me, and probably stems back to a lot of the creative process behind Roame, was when I was living in Hawaii. I was working in resorts, and if you're lucky enough to travel to sort of resort destinations and to some of the really luxury boutiques, they have incredible hotel boutique resorts. And a lot of my favorite pieces in my wardrobe from years ago were purchased at these stores, and they're often brands that you don't see everywhere. They're quite curated. And I always, like, even way back then, was like, if I have a brand, I want to have a brand that's in all these resort boutiques. So that's still on the wish list for 2026, is to get Roame into some amazing like resorts, so I can go and travel there.
I feel like you need to get in like White Lotus styling.
I know. How good would that be?
Do you watch it?
I do. I love White Lotus. Yeah. Well, the first one was in Hawaii.
Yes.
Which was really cool. Yes. So I'd been to most of the places they'd been.
Okay.
And then, ironically, the second one I loved because it was Italy, and I think that still probably was my favorite one.
Yeah.
And the clothes were epic.
Yeah.
I mean, those girls were nothing, those two actresses, and then they're the face of Dolce & Gabbana. I don't know if you knew that. So that was pretty cool. And then, ironically, the third one in Thailand I'm really enjoying because I'm a bit of a wellness girl, and I do a lot of retreats in Thailand. And actually, I was in Koh Samui when they were filming it.
Yeah.
But was too busy meditating to go and kind of throw some Roame on that maybe next time.
Amazing. If someone was to be considering working with an agency like the Lofft Agency, how would you describe the benefits of that? Because I'm considering it right now as getting that kind of help, but I don't even know where you would start in supplement space, but that's another conversation.
I think, there's definitely, I'm sure, avenues to help you with that. But I think I think when you start out in a business, you're often in a small team. And so, like I said at the start, the Lofft, I consider it as an extension of your brand and as a business. So it's like you've got these 2 team members working for you, but they're not, you don't have to, have the financial responsibility. So it's sort of like a no risk thing for a brand in a way. I don't know if many people know how agency works. It's a crazy model. And when I tell a lot of my husband and his business friends how it works, they're like, oh my God, that's wild. Because essentially we are a service business and we don't get paid till you get paid. So
you take a commission
We take a commission-based business. So basically when we sell the goods, we take a certain commission, which is pre-negotiated with the brand. And then at the time the brand gets paid, then we get paid another 30 days later. So
do you invoice the brand?
We invoice the brand. Yeah. So the brand shares the commission report and we invoice the brand. So I guess for a brand, it's a great way to grow your business because you're not essentially outlaying a huge amount of capital until you sell your product. It works very different internationally, and it's kind of wild how it works. So it's such an easy model here for people, like for the brands. It's so great. Internationally, it works a bit different. You have to pay showroom fees and they are wild.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we're talking maybe anywhere between 5 to 10 grand for one showroom in, say, New York, and then you have to have one in Paris, and then you're doing that 4 times a year. So, and that's before you've sold anything. So, I mean, we do have showroom fees, but they're just a lot more modest. So I think it's really great for brands because it means you've got this platform, and also a buyer is really, really busy. So a buyer, whilst they will come and see you, it's kind of a pain for them if they're just coming to see one brand and they only have certain days they go out and things. So if they can come to a place where they can see lots of brands and they can get their buying done, I'd like to think that they like coming to agencies in that sense because they can also have candid conversations. It's a bit of a tricky one when brands, like you're almost like that buffer between the buyer and the brand. What a buyer might tell me will be like completely differently to what they would want to tell you directly because, they have respect, you're a designer and stuff. So they will get into the nitty gritty of what's working within the brand. And then I can communicate that back to the brand and kind of like in a maybe more effective way.
Yeah.
To help them better for the next season.
Yeah.
So, and I think when you're at the Lofft, for instance, we provide reporting. So we'll provide mid-season and end-of-sale feedback. There's a lot of pre-lining and things. And those are just, I do it still with Roame. Internationally, I pre-line. Like, I still get opinions from outside. So I think it's a great avenue for your brand to have other people working for you, but they're not necessarily in your office.
Yeah,
because you can get a bit like in your own head when you're in the office, and especially if you're creative, that like you can look at a range board or a storyboard so many times and you're moving pieces around and you kind of lose the plot.
Yeah.
So it's really nice if someone who's looking at it with a clear lens and maybe a different lens, look purely from a commercial more lens.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
It's also good because like you can get a bit hot-headed.
Yes.
With feedback.
Yes.
Like if all your girlfriends are like, oh my God, obsessed with that. Oh yes, I would wear that. Like the amount of people that have told me that they're obsessed with Remy but haven't now ordered.
Yes.
My
Rude,
projections. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like I think it's so appropriate to have someone like you there to be like, cowboy, relax. Like this is what the industry is telling us, not your mum's best friend's dog.
Absolutely. I mean, my mum is everything I do, she thinks is amazing.
Yeah.
And she says every collection is amazing and all this. And she is very fashionable, mum, but like nothing could be wrong with any part of it. So and I think also it's kind of personal when you put your designs out. And I'm very like I don't have that anymore. I think I've grown. I really love feedback and want the feedback.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important, whatever you're doing, that you're taking that feedback on, because that's probably one of our biggest challenges is communicating that feedback and trying to let the brand know that it's only coming from a place of us both wanting to be successful. Because like I said to you, our success is on your success. We're not successful otherwise. So, but it's also a really fun part of the process, being in that stage. Like when people come and work at the Lofft, looking at it from another angle, it's a really fun place to work because you get to learn about how the industry operates, on multiple levels as well, because you're not just pigeonholed in one part of a business, for instance. So that, so many of our junior brand managers would say, I never knew that's how it worked, and so it's really cool. So it's a great way, if you're thinking even to start your own brand, to work in an agency to learn about how brands grow and develop as well.
What is next for Roame?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for us, we'd love to do another store potentially this year, especially getting close to summertime. So definitely in sort of a fun destination. So we're looking at those kind of plans at the moment. I think more growth of brand awareness is we're really excited about. So we've got some things happening to sort of grow the sales of the brand globally in the next couple of months. So yeah, there's some really exciting things. I think probably one thing I'm most excited about is we just closed off our last resort range, which for everyone will release sort of end of year, so sort of like the November, December period. And being that we started with resort, because that's the first collection we started with, I think I'm just so excited for everyone to see this one, because I think like anything, it's still only a new brand and we were learning, and we definitely put out some designs that when I look back, maybe they weren't the essence of the brand as much. And this particular range, now that we're working, with a bigger team, we were able to execute more things, and with all the learnings, of course. And I feel like this resort range and spring range that will be coming out from sort of August onwards probably is a very exciting time for us, because it's really at the core of what the brand would always hope to be. So
hitting it now.
So I'd be really interested to see, particularly by the time we launch resort, hopefully people are really excited to see, because we've had all these amazing, like our last resort was obviously our most successful one. We're very lucky. Each one keeps going each season. And we had some really big wins, and we had some amazing people wear it, and we had some products sold out. So it was at full price. So it's always really exciting. So I think, I think seeing now that we're a little bit more knowing what we want, and we were able to push the envelope, and I hope that we've hit some really cool designs and things that people maybe haven't seen in the market. We've really pushed ourselves to be really unique and innovative.
When does autumn drop?
So these collections, we've got winter next.
Okay, when does that drop?
And the winter drops basically from May, June.
Okay. And we're in autumn now?
Yeah, we're in autumn now. We're about to go into winter. But spring and resort, which is traditionally our stronger, our larger collections, starts from sort of August, but really our busiest periods would be sort of November, December.
Yeah.
So there's some really cool stuff.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, so I think I'm really excited about that.
Okay.
Yeah, and just seeing where the adventure takes us. And hopefully, let's put on the 2026 vision board that we get into a beautiful White Lotus style resort boutique, and we can go on holiday there.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Wow. Even shooting your campaigns overseas.
Yes.
Can you be doing that?
Yeah. So shooting campaigns is like the biggest part of our budget. It's crazy how much it costs, but we're very excited. We are shooting. Part of the winter collection is actually getting shot. I think actually, what date is it? I think it's next week in Cassis in France.
Wow.
Sadly, I'm not there.
Who is going from the team?
So we are using a outsourced creative director on that one. Okay. So they're going over there. We've done the vision board, and so that's going to be shot, and that'll be in our next sort of big campaign. So that's exciting. We have shot in Bali.
Do you just get everything on WhatsApp? The whole download?
They WhatsApp you, which is awesome. Yeah. And you have FOMO. Yeah. But, in some senses, I kind of enjoy that, because I do believe that everybody's good at, at their role. And like, I am not like, whilst I get really involved in the creative process for our shoots, the pre-work stuff, on the day you have to let that, you need to let that person drive that bus, because if you get the designer standing over you, the product is always the end product never is as good. Yeah. You need to let them kind of, and also I always feel at that point it's gone too far, let them do their thing. Yeah. So I'm just I have no idea what it's going to look like. They've been location scouting, it's going to be really cool, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So we shot in Bali is probably the furthest we've, been able to, but yeah, that's definitely on our goals, is to do more, besides my little personal shoots when I travel that end up on Instagram. But yeah, to have a big campaign would be amazing, you look at the brands that do that and it's so exciting. You mentioned the Cirque Girls, like how good are some of their shoots and locations?
They're insane.
And they get better and better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, they've got an episode with Bruna, who is one of their creative directors that they consistently work with, and we pulled apart the whole SIR campaign and how she approached it all and how it all happened. But the creative direction elements are so fun.
Yeah. I think it's exciting, and I think this is another, that AI thing we were talking about too. Like a lot of brands, big brands are using AI, but I think nothing beats like an on location thing. I think, but I'm also really excited. Like I love watching Jacques Mus or Jacques.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jacques Mus, and how they use like I just saw something today how they're using a bowling alley. Like, sometimes you just have to, try something different. So
it's so random that it will work.
By the way, I think I could go and do another Pilates class. I am feeling really pumped up.
Really?
I think the Remy is working, whether it's psychosomatic or placebo. I feel like, I don't know, I feel really good. I feel very ready to, I was thinking tonight I would take it easy and lay low because I've got a big party tomorrow. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I could go out tonight.
I have a girlfriend that took her first one last night. She had work and she was shooting an event. She started at like 5 and she was a touch nervous that she wasn't going to be able to sleep.
Yeah.
She was driving home at 10 o'clock and yawning. And she was like, it's perfect. The way that I like put it is like that half day that you need. I reckon by 7 o'clock you'll be like, no.
That'll be really, because I'm very strict with the caffeine because I'm not the best sleeper in the world. So I'm excited because you need that little, I feel really good.
It's given me two parts of my day. Like, how usually we're like only really get our best ideas out from 9 till 1 or something. This has given me complete second wind power.
Oh, I like
it's amazing. I'll give you a little, we've made up little tiny ones so that you don't have to steal your daughter's.
On, how I go and then how I go tonight and if I sleep. But no, I really feel very energized.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how quick was that?
I know. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
It was actually lots of fun, and I hope that I did you a good service and that anyone who's listening really hopefully learned something or gave them some inspiration. You're only in this world for a short amount of time. So, anything, if anyone ever wants to, I love answering questions. If anyone ever wants to reach out, because I think like we talked about, like it's all about who you surround yourself and sharing information. And, I hope they found just even one little bit that might encourage them to do something that they thought they might not be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there's so many, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors in fashion about just
100%.
How easy it is and like it's just so good. I love these conversations that we really get to like go deep and figure it out.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you.
That brings me to the end of this week's episode. If you loved it, I'd love to ask her a favor. Could you please share it with a friend, subscribe to this channel, like it on socials, or leave us a review, any of the above that feels right or easiest for you. We are still a baby podcast trying to make our way in the world, and we need all the love that we can get. I'll see you next Sunday.